These newspaper article readings are not for the faint-hearted or the squeamish. If you're at all sensitive, I might suggest these aren't for you. If in doubt, check the description below. It'll tell you which topics are covered in this particular episode. There's both human and animal suicides, and you heard that right. There's also horrific descriptions of injuries, as well as the deaths of youngsters. So don't do it to yourself if you're prone to nightmares, is all I'll say right now. Not all the articles are horrible. Some of them are uplifting, some of them show incredible bravery and heroism. There are near misses. So these were picked as showing life prior to health and safety, as well as for the crazy and curious details some contain with other miscellaneous happenings that kind of struck me enough to post the articles to Twitter, despite not having too much relevance to Scotland necessarily. These are worldwide topics, and they didn't have any real connection to the projects I was working on and researching at the time. I just happened to have come across them by the way, kind of thing. So we'll get into them, shall we? What we're going to do here is we're going to do a lucky dip of newspaper articles to really mix them up a wee bit, because while I'm doing the researches, I'm obviously coming up with the same kind of terms and things. So we'll mix them up even further. So to that end, I have all of the newspaper titles and dates of the articles. Alright, so today we're going to start with a double one. So it's the Edinburgh Evening News for the 7th of November 1905, followed by the Hamilton Herald and Lanarkshire Weekly News, Wednesday the 8th of November 1905. So let's see what these give us. Okay, so this is entitled Explosives in a Railway Carriage, a Polish Miner's Adventure. A Polish miner named Rice was last night sent by his employer from Blantyre to Glasgow to fetch some explosives. In the train on the way back, the explosives ignited and there was a series of explosions which set the railway carriage on fire as it was entering Belgrove station. Rice was badly burnt, but was able to get out of the burning carriage. He was taken to the infirmary. I don't think so. This is followed up from the Hamilton Herald. We have singular explosion in a train, Polish miner from Burnbank injured, and this just gives a few more details. The somewhat unusual spectacle of a railway carriage in flames was witnessed at about 6 o'clock on Monday night in the Belgrove station of the North British Railway. Before the train came to a standstill, there jumped from the carriage a Pole named George Rice, apparently suffering from burning injuries. Rice, it appears, entered the train at Queen Street Station, having in his possession 2 bottles containing some explosive substance. In the carriage along with him were 3 other men, one of whom, it is supposed, accidentally set alight and caused the substance to explode by throwing away a lighted match. The carriage immediately took fire and, as already indicated, entered Belgrove station burning. In alighting from the train, Rice fell and sustained a cut to the face. The burning vehicle was at once detached from the train, which thereafter proceeded on its journey. Rice, who was removed to the infirmary for treatment, is 46 years of age and resides at 14K Glenlee Street, Burnbank. He is employed as a labourer at William Dixon & Co. Limited's colliery, Blantyre, and stated that he got the explosive for that firm, having often been sent on similar errands. He could not, however, say where he procured the stuff or what it was. Further inquiries being made into the affair. And those stories are taken respectively from the Edinburgh Evening News, 7th of November 1905, and the Hamilton Herald and Lanarkshire Weekly News for Wednesday the 8th of November 1905. And it says in the Hamilton Herald version, the somewhat unusual spectacle of a railway carriage in flames. I've compiled articles illustrating varying events that have happened on Scotland's railways from 1900 onwards, and no, that wasn't an unusual occurrence. Railway carriages on flames were fairly prevalent, considering there should have been none at all. Also, trains setting stations on fire from sparks that came off the tinders and what have you, and storerooms at stations on fire happen all the time. Fire and the railways kind of just really went together far more commonly than you'd expect. So there we go. We have next the Dundee Evening Telegraph for the 30th of November 1904. Let's see what this one gives us. So this gives us: the Scientific American records once more with dismay the terrific losses of human life on railways in the United States. It appears from the reports of the Interstate Commerce Commission that last year 3,787 passengers and employees were killed and 51,343 were injured in train accidents. These figures show an increase in 2 years of nearly 1,000 in the number of killed and over 11,500 in the number of injured. What these figures mean may be understood when we remember that they far exceed in killed and wounded the losses in some of the greatest battles in the Japanese-Russian War. This appalling state of things is said to be due mainly to single-track lines and defective signalling. If the lines were worked on the block system, more than half these fatalities would disappear. And that's from the Dundee Evening Telegraph, 30th of November 1904. And fatality and injuries just went hand in hand with the railways. It's strange for someone nowadays not to have an ancestor that was killed or injured on the railways at some point. But for them to be recording an increase by so much over 2 years is really strange to me. You would think that if someone was injured in a certain way, preventative measures would be put in place to stop that same accident happening again. If someone was killed in a certain way, preventative measures would be implemented to stop someone else dying in that way. The US were in advance of the UK in adopting automatic coupling. Now, shunting is a huge killer of the railways, at least it was a huge killer on the railways. So many accidents, limbs lost and lives lost just through shunting, and automatic coupling made that an easier prospect and less dangerous. But the UK, it took the centralised Westminster government apparently longer to convince the railway companies to expend the money necessary to make their employees and their passengers' lives just safer on the railways. So that's an interesting article that really lays out the kind of numbers that were killed and injured on the railway. It is just weird that it showed such an increase rather than a decrease. That's quite strange. So we'll do another. This is the Dundee Courier for the 24th of April 1906. Let's see what this has. Okay, this is another interesting article, again, on the theme of railways. We have Seen at a Station, Baron's Strange Conduct. At Crewe yesterday, Baron von Trutschler of Odlum, Cheshire, pleaded guilty of assaulting a London and North Western Railway detective and also with using offensive language. Mr. Lambert of London stated that the Baron arrived at Crewe from London about midnight and had several hours to wait for his train. He went into the ladies' waiting room at the station, but was asked to leave by the lady attendant. He refused to do so until lady passengers required the room, and Detective Oliver proceeded to eject him. The Baron became abusive and struck the detective several times with his stick. Assistance was summoned, and the Baron was held to a chair, his pince-nez falling to the ground, and as the detective's assistant stooped to pick them up, the Baron rushed at Oliver and struck him a violent blow in the mouth. The Baron's counsel expressed regret for the occurrence and said that, had the detective been in uniform, the affair would not have happened. The Baron was a German subject and was used to seeing police officials in pretty uniforms. He thought that the publicity of the case was his punishment. He was fined £5, 13 shillings. It transpired that the Baron travelled from London on the footplate of the engine. That's from the Dundee Courier for the 24th of April 1906, and I think is just an example of eccentric, entitled, rich guy wanting his own way in a thing, really. Yeah, screw that guy. We'll do another one. We've been kind of short so far. The Fraserburgh Herald and Northern Counties Advertiser for the 25th of June 1907. We'll see what this has in store. Okay, so our last article is also very short, and is also on the theme of railways. It was the ending of this that had me confused. So, it gives us a verdict of accidental death was returned at Wandsworth on Augusto Glenell, a Swiss, aged 40, a cellarman, who fell between a train and the platform at Earlsfield Station. It was stated that he was an albino. That's from the Fraserburgh Herald and Northern Counties Advertiser, 25th of June, 1907. And why would they mention that he was an albino? Do they feel like that played some part in his accident? I can't imagine how. It just seems strange for them to add that piece of information, almost as if they're saying, this person died in this way, but this is how he was different from us. That seems very strange to me. It also finishes us for this episode. So we may see you next time.